David converted the garage into a performance studio. The band started Saturday night events. It was super weird. The ex-landlord spoke to all of David's neighbors, making false claims to get them to harass him. He was obsessed and he couldn't let it go. It was stalking. David's brother Jamie, who rented their mother's house out and kept all the money for 8 years while it was still in her name, did the same thing, turning up to David's neighbors and spreading porn and brothel rumors even though no men ever came to the property, and both claims were patently false. But this was a business, and their sexual frustration over David's rock band was causing them to break the law. They had entitled themselves to tamper with David's livelihood and 20 years of work to get to this point where his hard-fought for independent career was about to take off. David just wanted to get the act on tour as soon as possible so people like this no longer had any access to misbehave. That doesn't just happen overnight, especially with so many rebuilds and harassment along the way from people who are not being reprimanded for breaking the law. While complaints were made, Eddie had soured the local police department, and they would not stop him from turning up at the new band house. Were people really that sexist that they were letting people get away with mistreating the group just because it was women playing in the band? David hoped not. There was nothing that justified the way these people were behaving, especially the holier-than-thou ones who were trying to save the girls. They weren't interested in saving them because they were not there when the girl needed help to get off drugs, away from a DV situation, or out of depression before they were in the band, and the holier-than-thou ones were never there to help after she went back to these things, just to save them when they were in the band. People who tried to save the girls from the band were coming from a very fake place. The concern was fake, and the reasons they relied on to deter them were fake. It turned out even the girls' families were jealous of how happy the band made them. Since there was a yard and the property was owned, the band's drummer Kitty fulfilled her namesake and introduced 2 kittens to the band house. David welcomed them and named them Whiskers and Kisses. The girls loved coming over, having drinks, playing some songs, playing with the cats, and then socializing after all the hard work was done. It was a good lifestyle, and it was going somewhere. Some of the band girls visiting started getting a lot more forward after practice. Because of his looks, talents, charm, and charisma, stunningly gorgeous women have been extremely attracted to him his whole life so naturally. Band girls who were there to be a part of the band to make it even more appealing to the public on stage and in photos also started to show interest in him and the other girls personally. They would just lay back on the couch after band practice and openly say, "I wanna fuck you guys." They were very clear about their interests. David's music, all the positive energy and the atmosphere just made them feel great, which was good for the band's public image because it meant they were always happy and upbeat on the live stream. His influence made them really funny and outrageous. He made them more confident. But the neighbors and landlords also got more intense and more jealous the more kind the girls were to David. It illustrates the point that the people who were actually being inappropriate toward the girls along the way were never in the media. Nicholas, the neighbor to the new property, a mentally slow but aggressive 19-year-old with wet silver-looking eyes and black hair, would creep up and down the back fence pointing a nail gun at the girls as they walked past to get to practice. He would stalk and film onto private property with his handheld camera. Interestingly, Ewan, Eddie, Jamie, and Nicholas and many more should be on the news for what they did around David's band, but never were. Out of hundreds of band girls, 9 was only able to get 4 to 5 to say bad things about him, and they had to pay them to do it. One of those 5 was Jess. Again, only 5 out of hundreds. She was one of the girls in the promotions group, but she was a bit like Eddie. The girls would write David Otto music all over their bodies and order food from the local KFC at the counter in a black G-string and order pizza and answer the door with their top off. The band girls would always try to outdo each other's craziness. David still taught them the music, but it had become their show. Jess wanted to be in David's position without doing any of the work over the previous decades to earn it. She was kind of a weirdo about it too. At the same time, she idolized him and tried to copy his ideas at her own house, but no girls would turn up. Girls like that tend to want to punish people for standing up to them by lying about them. Jess would stand in the kitchen and strip naked, hoping people would be into it. They weren't. She was too insecure. The girl who was there to learn bass was made uncomfortable by Jess and left, and David and Kitty had to make excuses for Jess, who was unapologetic and blamed everyone else because she embarrassed herself. Later on, Channel 9 would hide these text messages from a courtroom to change Jess's image away from who she really is because they needed her to help tell a fake story. Jess was a very selfish person and took advantage of David's care and generosity. She would lie about her promo statistics to get paid anyway without doing the work and complain that her life was hard because her mother was depressed. David invited Jess's mother and family to lunch at the band house and helped give the family support and positivity through their tough time. Anyone who's had a guitar class with David will know he's a master at this, at helping refine their love for life. Things improved for her mother and for herself from the confidence she gleaned from playing in the band. Jess got a new job and a boyfriend and didn't have time for band practice anymore. Jess was afterwards very negative about David's career out of jealousy, even though he was supportive to her own goals. Jess told a lot of stories, but it wasn't what she said. It was the more he looked at her statistics, the more it was clear she was ripping him off, collecting hundreds of dollars but lying about her productivity. and not producing any bookings. When she heard that he had actually began purchasing the island, she went on television and said he controlled her food. Then later, under oath in court, she admitted that never happened and she'd lied to make him look bad in the television program. Even after David had Jess's mother at his house for lunch to help give her a positive life perspective when she was suicidal. David even put on a birthday party for one of the band girls. He gave Jess $100 to buy some items for a surprise party, but when David returned with the birthday girl, she had only bought a $5 cake and kept the rest of the money for herself on top of the hundreds of dollars in cash plus food, drinks, and accommodation while she was being trained. She completely took advantage of him, and stealing the birthday cash was now a second crime that Jess committed. Jess sold her underwear to a man in a public toilet. Jess turned up bragging that a man had approached her in the street and offered $50 for her underwear. "Kitty, the band's drummer," exclaimed Jess. "You didn't do it, did you?" Jess was silent. It was clear she had. She went on to explain that he said it was $50 for her underwear and $100 for a taste. She then met with the man in a public bathroom. The group visited the local store, and Jess approached a strange man near the local pub and asked for a draw of his cigarette. She pulled it right out of his mouth and put it into hers. That's just who Jess is. A guy next door, Nicholas, had continually harassed the band girls when they came in for practice because of what the ex-landlord and David's brother were saying to defame him. It made David realize he needed more space to work on the project. Even before he put the model rock band together, David had always envisioned buying a private island so he could play music loud and record albums without having neighbors, and the disrespect and boundary crossing of Nicholas, Ewan, Eddie, Jamie, and now George, a neighbor on the other side, made him think maybe it's not just a luxury. Maybe the band needed the privacy of an island to not get harassed by stalkers and neighbors while they rehearsed and streamed the online TV show. David was very organized and just kept his mind on the daily business goal of having hundreds of supporters in each of the different cities on the tour map he'd laid out across the world while training the band up to a very high standard. The music was already done, he just needed to fine-tune his performers and maintain a strong body of fans on the weekly stream who wanted to learn from him and see the group perform. The fortunate thing about jealous people only being able to describe criminality out of jealousy, and their hope for things that they want to be true about David out of their own inadequacy and lack of ability, is that it never sticks. And finally, now we have the names of the people who were the worst for it. The people who saw themselves as David's equal as he was rising up, but they could never achieve the incredible things he has achieved all on his own, even while landlords, family, neighbors, and even some band girls were desperately sabotaging the band's journey upwards to their Phase 1 goal of perfectly playing 12 songs in front of 100 fans each in 8 different cities and enjoying a fun life together on island, playing music and partying by the beach every night while enthusiastically teaching 800 fans every Tuesday night on live stream, then visiting them all in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Auckland, Los Angeles, Phoenix, London, and Liverpool to play live every year. Every happy and fun-loving note and dance move is already mapped out. If you're not already a fan, love David's music at davidottomusic.com. Sign on for free trial class to meet David and learn your favorite song at easyguitarclasses.com and book a free trial to join the band. Promote the merch and help us produce content for fans at secretlovetheband.com. Then join us back for the next part of the David Otto story. Now you see what we saw. David's philosophy is that, at some point in life, hopefully early, you make a choice. You make a choice to work to be someone, to align yourself with who you really are and achieve great things, to be true to yourself. Or, you quit. You try to forget who you really are and you try to make yourself feel okay about that lesser decision by attacking those who are living their truth. The better band girls and I are the first type. Which one are you? It's not one or the other when it comes to family either. It comes down to who each person in your life is and how each individual treats you, and there's plenty of people who have a great career and have kids. There's plenty who build a business and also add extra services to benefit the community through it. It all just depends on what your vision for your life is and what your daily habits are. Myra, David's sister, unfortunately chose the lesser path. As a result, she turns up and screams that he's not to showcase his fashion at his music events, and that if he doesn't stop, she's going to drive her 4-wheel drive through his backyard fence where the girls would sit and socialize after band practice. Myra admits she had also red-flagged police claiming an illegal porn production when he was doing no such thing. It was about fashion he's designed and music he'd written. Even though fans often requested it, the girls were never even naked in the show, let alone being intimate on camera like she was claiming. They were promoting the band's music and apparel. That was enough. Myra had always had an anger problem and did not play music, so she did not have a healthy outlet for her emotions. Once speeding on the highway and rolling her car, killing her 2 dogs. She was a proud soccer mom whose husband was on meth. She was on the lesser path. She took all this anger out on her little brother. If your life choices make you that angry, make different ones. It's your life. And if you think people can't play music on stage their whole life, then you haven't seen the Easy Guitar Classes business model. David has designed something where everybody whose higher path is music can keep that joy in their life for their whole life. Easy Guitar is a wonderful place. Yet in his day-to-day life, David appears to be surrounded by psychos as he peacefully pursues his music goals. He feels they do it because he's a placid guy. They know they're not in any danger. When asked what the solution is, David says, "I just pack up and try to get away from them. It's also just false virtue because these people, they don't do anything like this to prevent actual serious harm in the girl's life when they're away from me, which shows it's just personal jealousy that I chose a path in life that's fun and they made different decisions they regret. I'm happy with the path I'm on because ultimately people are going to see that it's the people around me doing the wrong thing, and there is nothing illegal about a group of women playing music nor any part of the way we do that. That's why nothing's ever come of all the fake investigation. It's all just hot air. Through a harrowing series of events involving Nicholas chasing the band down the street with an axe, trying everything with no help from corrupted local police, the band finally moved to an apartment in a busier area in a different city with no visible neighbors and a view of the ocean. It was a treat. With some noise constrictions though, the band shifted speed to Thursday night events, cupcakes, complimentary house drinks, and acoustic music for $35. It was a smaller space, but it was working to build the band's following. It was even busier than the Saturday nights in Brisbane. David also trained in a cappella choir in the same style as his band as a side feature, singing popular songs then eventually adding texture to his songs live. David's not stupid. He didn't expect there to be no problems. There were problems even with his all-guy bands with the guys' drug habits and unreliability. The girls were generally better in this regard, but the problems should be things like keeping the band in time with the drummer, making sure all the notes are right. Not, are we getting kicked out for the 9th time because the landlord isn't permitted in the apartment because the girls who already live there asked David to keep him away, or constant fake criminal charges because a local TV station is worried people will spend all their money going to your concert instead of theirs. That's what the lie campaigns were really about. In early 2015, two girls, Andy and Mel, were a part of the choir, but they had decided to steal David's music concept and arrangements. They tried to intimidate him with screaming and aggressive driving and made one of the performances unsafe for anyone to be at. They ended up trying to copy the a cappella group and do a car parts seminar, but no one came along. Oh wait, Channel 9 told you the girls all acted perfectly towards David. Not so. One of the choir girls was named Ashley Abbott. She had not paid for her classes, done no work in exchange for them, but wanted David to sign off on a transport department document that she was an employee when she was not, in order to get her license back. She was extremely aggressive about it, calling him repeatedly and leaving intimidating voice messages to force him to sign a false document. He declined because it was fraud. She was coercing him to commit through her vicious texts and screaming voicemails she was leaving. Some girls don't like being told they can't have what they want. Next came a blistering series of David Otto takes a reasonable step to advance his career and wealth like every other successful musician on the planet, then Channel 9 takes a strike at him to stop him from doing that. There is no state resource that viewers are paying for that wasn't engaged for this personal vendetta of a musical artist. Since the choir concept was so good the co-organizers wanted to steal it, David put that on ice till he could work out the security protocol and focus back on just his music performances. Maybe it was just a couple of bad eggs. Who knows? The majority of the band girls didn't act like that. The best way forward, since he was in a hub of some very large, most of the time empty venues amongst millions of people, was to step up his game with the event networking which had worked previously with the music school at the Hall in Brisbane. He invited 7 performers trained in his music school to bring around 7 guests to watch the group perform, and had a great event with around 50 people in attendance at the small hall. There weren't even enough seats. Those 50 people came to that event and loved it. They always do when it's a David Otto event. It made sense to simply scale that success to around 20 performers who would network ongoing for 6 months with an easy goal for each team member of 5 guests a day, with a view to fill a much larger venue and sharing in a portion of their sales. Just like every sales team, by achieving that daily goal, the small team would also break a Guinness World Record. The concept and artwork was very appealing and showed the exciting goal of the project the group intended to execute together, and many responded. It was clear they got paid when they did the work, which was a common pay structure for all the nightclub crawls and party tours in the area. David then planned weekly meetings to train the team and planned monthly lead-up events to prove the concept as it went along. One of the promoter applicants who wrote and explained her name was Patricia. She said, "I'm a journalist, I can help." She said she was younger than she really was and said she could use her training as a journalist for the Gold Coast Bulletin to help promote the concept. The idea was simple. Build the team, train them to sell, start selling out a regular lead-up event in a free venue, and use that success to convince the stadium managers to give us the field for the afternoon on a percentage of sales. Then syndicate the event around the country. It wouldn't have mattered if they had, because venues change all the time and the event still goes ahead. But the team was told to learn from their training pack and not sell any in their first week. This instruction was clearly written on the training manual, which is a good practice anyway because it gets them used to sharing the script in a relaxed way without being too attached to the result. It all just feels like practice then, and it was just his name on the ticket for a public venue that was always empty when drive past. It was ambitious but not impossible, and he could make a compelling pitch if he arranged a scaled proof of concept. He'd also begun construction of an 80-page event operations manual from his 30 years experience in live events and tertiary study in event management, and was also being closely mentored by a local promoter who has handled tours for Green Day and others, along with guidance by the state agencies for independent music artists who, when consulted about the event, simply said, "Look, there's no one way to do it." It was interesting to see the number of high-rises going up around the Gold Coast where the entire building would sell off the pictures years before it was even built. A multi-trillion-dollar industry around the world that completely relies on people buying a vision while you construct it for them. The next week at training, the bar supervisor was very intrigued at what we were doing as it was a growing group of models in a public venue and it got people's attention. His name was Alex Hamilton. He was recently the bar manager at the QT Resort. Alex came up and said, "Hey, what are you guys working on?" David responded that the group was developing an event. "Did you want to use the venue here?" David took a tour around the venue with Alex and talked about the details and came to an agreement. "Okay, we'll have the first lead-up event here on Tuesday, April 7th from 5 p.m. after the 4 p.m. meeting." A girl called Grace was thinking ahead before she came to the promo meeting and brought a copy of her promotional CD. She was a singer. David offered, "Grace, did you want to play?" "Okay, now we have a monthly venue and 2 acts," and Alex offered if they needed a backup venue for the main event in October. "Our pool area holds 2,000 people. Grace came to the meeting with a copy of her album with the hopes of performing herself, and she now has that opportunity. And she was super excited, and Alex was excited to get the drink and food sales for the Marriott at the monthly events, as that was the deal. The group got the venue for free for doing promotions, and the venue got to sell food and drinks on the night. "Okay, see you next Tuesday." Everyone was rebooked for the next meeting on Tuesday, the 24th of March, 2015. One of the girls named Katie asked, "Hey, where is Patricia today?" Patricia, the Gold Coast Bulletin journalist, had not arrived. She was not there for this very successful meeting on Tuesday, the 17th of March, 2015. Patricia sent a series of abusive and false claims on Wednesday, the next day after the meeting she'd missed, where she would have seen for herself that the event had a venue firmly secured. But that wouldn't have mattered. She was going to override David's efforts and betray his trust anyway by creating a fake story anyway, even though there was clear evidence her story was planning to be the opposite of the truth to trick people into avoiding an opportunity they were excited about and have every reason to be. He has great ideas and an incredible work ethic that serve and improve the lives of large groups of people. Looking at the reality of that first moment when a fake article was being formed by a journalist says everything about all the other ones. A venue was secured. She said there was not ever any venue secured. She was also not there on the day that it was secured. Unfortunately for her, she was not aware of just how many times David had already performed at a live event in his life and how much proof there already was in existence that was in opposition to the false image she was desperately trying to engineer. Patricia had gone a different way. She was either an out-of-work blogger or a goon for hire. Patricia began to use her Facebook page like a fake newsroom and took a photo of David's event ticket in front of a police station to force a false association. She claimed having made reports to Scamwatch and police, even though there was nothing to report. He was looking forward to playing at his own gig. The set list was going to include the most popular songs from his albums like Four Blade Fan and etc. David texted Patricia asking her to prove why she was falsely trying to say the event would never be put on, especially when she wasn't there for the meeting where the venue and support acts were secured. He asked her how she figured there was no intention to ever put any performance on. He explained, "I'm one performing at event and done it all my life." Patricia texted, "Don't make this any worse for yourself." And by the afternoon of Sunday, 22nd of March, 2015, Patricia had doctored together a news-style post on her Facebook page with links to David's profile and messaged all the promoters to quit and messaged the stadium to tell them not to take the band's proposal. Patricia then ended the Facebook post with the ominous "contact police." She outwardly said, even though he kept his word turning up to all the meetings and was looking forward to performing, that there was no intention of ever turning up and playing, and that whole thing just a scam to take money. Do a runner when in fact he had played hundreds of concerts in his life already, many free promotional ones to get his name out there since the age of 12. His name was on the poster and he'd played his music at gigs around Brisbane in the lead up to this meeting. Google what swatting is. Again with no basis. It echoed back to Eddie's texts, "Gonna put a police fix on you." Was he somehow connected to this? Patricia was from Dakabin, which out of hundreds of suburbs in southeast Queensland is the suburb next to the one where Eddie was harassing the band for over 12 months for not letting him in the house because Eddie was an actual dangerous guy who made the otherwise happy band girls extremely alarmed. The breakthrough event was dead in the water, sabotaged by a trained journalist who worked for the Gold Coast Bulletin who coincidentally wanted to run a similar event. David commented, "I was looking forward to playing my music at these events. The thing I was actually looking forward to was playing my music at the event, even if not paid. That's been my favorite part of it my whole life, just playing music." Next, the awesome team started dropping off, understandably saying, "Sorry, I can't be involved anymore. It's too frightening," while Channel 9 is attacking the girls for trying to use the band to get a better life, even though promoters and fans love his music and event concepts. Patricia was messaging them all her Facebook article. David needed to keep the promotions more automated by relying more on ads. It was more expensive, but people were being unreliable. Instead of relying on people to network his music, Facebook ads promised. Facebook ads, reach your audience directly for only 1 cent. It worked really well. By June, David had started to build a considerable following for his music through easy guitar and end-of-term performances at a room he had contracted in the Southport Community Center. Based on this success and income, David contracted a private island in the Whitsundays to have live events it paid for by the music school and everything on contract already. After 3 months of no contact from her, Patricia Higgins then reappears. The students themselves signed a formal agreement after enjoying a free trial class to see how good the classes were. David even gave them a free guitar for the chance to show people just how great he is at getting other people good at guitar, so people started signing up like crazy after seeing proof of how good they would get from what they learned in the free trial. Patricia had suddenly pivoted and started messaging people again to say the lessons were now a scam. Seems to be just as she gets there and not before or after. Like a crazed stalker, she would scrape the friends and likers on David's business and personal pages and message each one to tell a fake story hundreds of times a day. Even though Patricia was attacking his employment and seeking out people who like his music pages to message them directly to not pay him as best he could, David kept making part payments to the island vendor's main account and paying off the deposit to a separate account they requested he pay that to. The island deal was $1,000 a week and he had paid $2,500 towards it, while Patricia Higgins from the local newspaper stalked his happy students. Patricia's profile, now saying lessons are SCM, don't sign up, never be out on, and she's saying this to people who were at their 3rd or 4th class. That alone was rarely enough to deter someone. It was her frightening people by mixing in the mention of police action in her posts. It's powerful, but that's also because it's illegal. It's against federal law to use emergency services to harass someone. David had not firmly responded to her yet. He was still in some shock for what she'd done to his events back in March of 2015, but he was very awake to what she was now doing to the music school and island purchase. This wasn't a mistake of hers. This was a campaign. So he wrote to her, "Dear Patricia, I've waited 3 months for you to come to your senses, and now it's clear you're attacking anyone that employs me. If you don't stop attacking my livelihood, I will need to sue you defamation to demonstrate that the things you're making up and saying publicly are serious, false, and it's affecting people." He sent her a link to a beauty pageant contestant who lost a $5 million defamation case against the pageant organizers for lying about them. Patricia then organized a higher-level Channel 9 reporter to stalk David, and Patricia posted on her profile that she was now in contact with a reporter from Channel 9 to stop David playing music at his events with the claim he would never turn up. Even though they knew he kept his word and was there every week at the studio, that's how they knew when to ambush him, because they knew he was so reliable and dedicated to serving his students and concert attendees. If someone's doing the wrong thing and you want to stop them, you can just actually contact police, but they couldn't do that to stop him because he wasn't doing anything wrong. So the game was to put a considerable amount of effort into making it just seem that way, using sheer negative willpower and completely false claims. Ashley Abbott, the girl who aggressively demanded that David sign a false document earlier that year, reappears. She requests a meeting time, and as David is already meeting with students that afternoon, he agrees to meet her briefly in his break at the function room where David teaches music. She requests a meeting time, promising she needs work, will help network his events, and David is already seeing students that afternoon and agrees. While standing outside the door to his studio, her hands shaking, feet are blue, she made a fake request and helped set this up. She attends the meeting she requested, and in an act of deceit organized by Channel 9 asked him to walk her safely to the car across the park. As she knew women's safety was important to him, he agreed to see her to her vehicle at her request then. There were more than 20 people watching Channel 9 try to embarrass him who were there to meet at 4 p.m. Students and promoters were lined up. Guitars were ready to practice on. Psychotic 9 reporter appears, lunges at the lineup at the door, clumsily bruising members of the public with the camera, and tries to scare the queue off. They never showed it, but David confidently invited the reporter and camera crew into his studio to show them the full experience his students have. Jenna Hudson, the reporter from Channel 9, motioned to sit down and have the free trial class people have been loving for years, but stopped herself because she could see that it would be good, and if she learned to play a song it might disagree with the fake story they were trying to tell about him. They could see the row of free guitars he was giving out as part of the promotion. David spoke with them openly for 45 minutes, but they couldn't use any of it because it showed how legitimate, and in fact how world-class and valuable his music service to people actually is, and how great the results are that people get. The majority of David's students were guys in their 30s, so this had nothing to do with women either. This was about stopping David from earning a living from his university degree in event management training. He should only be celebrated and admired for these amazing personal achievements. Channel 9 trying to run an intentionally false story about David's music events set up to promote his albums he wrote and recorded in his own home studio. On July 24, 2015, Channel 9 published their first fake article on David. They wanted to defeat public love of David's music. That's why Channel 9 spends all year building public trust, but not many people know they also control the police and use them to steal assets like you hear about in China. They try to cause Australians to not support each other to get away with it. This should get the attention of any Australian with pets or who own or are paying off a house right now. Even though David had performed hundreds of concerts in his life, and Channel 9 had actually been able to meet with him because he keeps his appointments. The article claimed that he never turns up to perform or play any of his events, but he had classes the same afternoon in the venue where they ambushed him to say that, and they filmed all his students. And they could see there was clearly a class going in and guitars everywhere, but ran a story that it didn't exist. Even though there was no issue with David's concerts and he most often played for free to promote his albums. The article claimed that if you heard about David putting on an event, Channel 9 wanted you to call police. But there was no legal basis for them to say that. And it was suspicious timing because 1 week later they sold their live events department called TicTic, which sells tickets to live events to a foreign investor. They also claimed that people who had never paid any money were somehow financially defrauded. They took a video clip from the musician's YouTube channel and stripped the sound off of it. Then they edited out all the footage of him playing and singing off the video because it conflicted with the false claim of never intends to get up and play the performances he books, because him performing in the video was evidence that conflicted with the false claim they had been running with for 5 months now. Then told the audience, if you hear about him organizing a legitimate concert or online stream, contact police. It was psychotic, illogical, and it had never been done before. This was the treatment David got if he simply put into practice what he learned at his event management course and had been doing his whole life through hundreds of rehearsals and live performances. He had always been a rock at, including the performance after 2 days of no sleep, 2 interstate flights, a TV performance on Channel 10 with Molly Meldrum, and an 18-hour drive with no breaks. Few Australians worked that hard, and Channel 9 wanted him arrested for it. This was all under a false pretense of saying he has no intention of ever playing if you buy a ticket, during the same week that they were selling TicTic. The article against his music career ran on Friday, July 24th, and true to his word, he filed an application for defamation in the Supreme Court on Monday, the 27th of July 2015. The documents had the court seal and the filing number written on them, which anyone in the public could and can still look up. These documents were then served on Patricia to now appear in court, but she went online and embarrassed herself further by saying the documents were a fake and not actually lodged with the court, even though they had a filing number that proved that were lodged with the court. David had spent the entire weekend drafting the application that proved the negative things Channel 9 said about him was dangerous, costly, and patently false, and they knew that at the time of publishing the fake story to trick people. 444 anyhow, a national-level attack on the music school and his rock music brands and products, shirts, dolls, hundreds of hours of design work with cool-looking fashion and logos was reduced to a so-called danger to be avoided, and even contracted students who signed 12-month contracts were the proof of serviceability on the finance for the island. Anyone who's had a class with David would know that he's one of the most caring and genuine people in the world. If you think this was unfair, join us for a petition interview to share what you think about what Channel 9 did to the musician in 2015 and how you might feel if Channel 9 did this to your son or daughter. Though unfortunately even contracted students would text, "Saw thing on news, sorry not coming in anymore, even though I signed a contract." The article was strictly designed to be alarming and include a threat of criminality by alluding to it without proving it, trying to get people to believe they just might be assaulted if they bought his music, and posters was threaded through all of their material. The public got conned by Channel 9 about a serious player in the music industry. It's embarrassing how desperate 9 was being in their pursuit of the livelihood one of the world's most talented and hard-working musicians had created. There's really been nothing like it. They were really worried about the brand catching on and were willing to misuse state resources to stop the sale of pretty-looking t-shirts and albums full of acoustic ballads. It was the government trying to stop you having David's awesome music, apparel, and entertainment. He was banned. Anyhow, the island vendors knew what was going on and were still actively accepting money on the island contract without it being rescinded, so in the hopes that a pivot would be out of reach for Patricia and friends, David was forced to build out a whole new brand and way to book shows. They had no right to stop him, and it was clear it was all financial reasons they were doing it for. They had no interest in the actual safety of the public. Incidentally, 9 would call this pivot they forced him into with fake articles that drove happy students away a deceptive new scam, when it was them who destroyed a legitimate business offering guitar classes by telling the nation to contact police. Federal offense to do that to a person, so the journalists were committing a crime and hoping the public would fall for the actual scam when they wrote that. Journalists don't care if police are busy responding to a fake report while an intruder enters your house. They just want to make sure they keep getting your money. That's the sad truth. We have a way to fix it though. In any event, being an inspired, creative, hard-working guy, David decided to center on the asset that people would be drawn to the most, the island. Wrapped his music with it. Whitsunday Music Festival Island sounded like a hot new name to promote his concert performances, and boy was it. Hundreds then flocked to sign up for the incredible but manageable introductory offer to glamp at the island and listen to music, while streaming the event live online to viewers in other countries.